It's great seeing everyone this evening. Thank you to those of you who were able to attend in person. For those who have not attended the Theriault Lab Speaker Series, this event is where founders and leaders share advice on how they overcame challenges, capitalize on their target market, and develop their product, providing you with actionable insight for your own products and processes. For more information, you can find us on theriaultlabs.org under our Speaker Series tab. I'd like to thank our sponsors for this evening's conversation. This free event is presented by Theriault Labs and is sponsored by the Harold Alphon Institute for Business Innovation at Thomas College, Valley Beverage, and Bricks Co-working and Innovation Space. In addition, this conversation is being recorded and will be available for later viewing on our YouTube channel. This evening's conversation is presented by Elaine Theriault-Currier, pen name. And in this speaker series, Elaine will discuss how to craft compelling narratives, cultivate relationships with journalists, and leverage current trends to maximize your company's visibility.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I really want to make this as valuable and interactive as I can. So there are 5 exercises baked into this presentation, and we're going to have time for it. So I invite you to make sure that you have a piece of paper. And you might be taking notes on your phone, but some of you might want some paper. So strongly encourage you to get out that pen and paper. I also really want to make sure that during these exercises, you feel that you have the opportunity to ask me pointed questions about how the principles that we're going to talk about directly relate to your business, because I know we have a range here and virtually. And what I'm going to talk about is applicable to everyone, but you might have questions about how to apply it specifically to you. If there's a specific data point, a pitch, a journalist, I want to make sure that you get something that you could go tomorrow and work on if you felt that you were ready to. So I really want to make this interactive. The first thing I'm going to do is define what earned media is. We're in a really special part of the marketing matrix. This is the PESO model, PESO. Really quick. Paid is your most traditional, you are paying for a commercial to say what you want to say to the audience that is watching that television commercial. Very standard. We're going to skip earned for a minute. We're going to go to shared or social. This is not only your posts on social media, but it's also the reviews that people leave. It's your content that you're sharing, but you don't own the platform. So like if Meta goes down, you cannot contact your Instagram followers, right? Because you're going through their channel. So you have the content, but you don't own the channel. With owned, it's a little bit more under your control. It's your website, it's your email campaigns, it's your blog, it's content that you are writing to the people who have said, if you click the constant contact box, that they said they want to receive emails from you. Earned is really special because earned is your story that's filtered through the lens of a journalist, and you're not paying anyone. You're basically saying this story is so good that I know you're going to want to cover it. I don't have to pay to have a commercial on it because it so relates to like the beat that you're on or the media outlet that you're on, but you are giving the control over. It's the broadcast journalist who decides how they're going to break up the 2-minute interview into like a 30-second clip. So you have to be really on message to make sure that of all those 2 minutes, every single thing has a gem in it that you would want on TV. So what we're going to talk about is this earned space. There's opportunities for everyone, no matter what stage of business you're in or what sector you're in, but it's a little bit more nuanced than I'm sure someone here on social media is going to talk about like how you would have a social media strategy. So I'm going to be focusing specifically on earned media. And I do want to have the caveat that within media, we're talking about a lot of different kinds of outlets. You have your news, the News Center Maine, News at 5, WABI. They're talking about topics that, could be relevant to many people in their audience, which is really geographic mostly. So you have to be talking about a problem that solves is a solution for many consumers. You really want to show social and economic impact. They're really going to be focused on the newsiness of this and how your story is important at a state level. And you would want to be demonstrating relevance by aligning with a prominent state or national story. Something like the housing shortage. That's something that everyone across the state of Maine in the country is talking about. If you could align yourself with that, for instance, that's like your ticket in. Lifestyle media is a little bit different. Think of like Down East Magazine, or even the 207 Magazine television show. This is a little bit more specific. You know, if you were, let's say in beauty, you would be in Vogue, and you don't expect everyone to read Vogue, but that's where your target customer is. You also might want to be demonstrating relevance by aligning with trends in your seasonal calendar. Every issue of a magazine has an editorial calendar, and you want to make sure that you're aligning with, you know, the trend in that area. Okay, so now we're going to go on to the 5 elements of a great pitch. Does everyone know what I mean by pitch?
They might think something different.
Yeah, okay, it is a little bit different. So for the purposes of today, only having an hour, and I want to make this, you know, interactive. We're not going to be talking about writing a press release or, you know, pitch etiquette. We could talk a lot about that, and we can talk after. But the pitch is when I email a journalist 5 to 7 sentences that has everything here, that tells them the kind of what's their appetite. And if you have a press release, sometimes you would attach it or put it in the body of the email, but you wouldn't just really send a press release, especially if you don't have a relationship with a journalist. This is like your intro, and you want to give them, you know, it's like your executive summary. Maybe that is a little bit more relevant. So we've got data, sources, timeliness, visuals, and the relevant journalist. Again, we're going to focus on these today. These are the core elements of a great pitch. We can talk more in detail after or during. So let's talk about data. The great thing is I'm sure that many of you in your pitch decks or as you're building your company probably have some like hero data point that explains the problem and or the potential of your solution. This is something that you would want to, you know, hit them over the head with right away to prove why your story is important. And you're also offering some sort of credibility for why, you know, why this impacts so many people and the fact that you know enough to be able to share this data. And it can also verify that, you know, statewide, you might use a data point that shows something on the Maine context or the national context. So you can point your story to say, hey, this is something that News Center Maine will want to cover because, you know, 500,000 Mainers relate to this. So I have some examples here. The most important is probably going to be your industry studies and news reports, because that is what's most relevant to your businesses. But you could also look at the census, you could look at the EPA, you could look at the Maine Department of Labor. You could talk about, you know, in terms of like the census or the EPA EJ screen. That's really good if you're talking about the people that you're serving. And you might say, you know, it might be, in communities that are marginalized. You might want to be talking about themes of equity. Those can be really, really helpful sources. And the Maine Department of Labor is really great if you were looking at, you know, employment in certain sectors or, you know, employers in certain sectors. Those are really fun to check out. So right now is your first exercise, and I want you guys to think, I'm going to give you 5 minutes, and I want you to think of, it doesn't have to be for everything, but a couple data points that can really demonstrate the problem that you're solving with your business, or the, you know, it could be an outcome of your business. We've helped 500,000 Mainers get housing. So things to think about, it could be your supply chain. So one of my clients is a food manufacturing company, and they source from Maine a certain product, a certain raw crop. And we can talk about so many things about that crop and why it's great and how much we're sourcing from them and, you know, kind of the main story there. We could talk about employment, employment growth, if you've grown a lot, or if your employees themselves have some sort of relevance to your message, your industry and or your beneficiaries, like what, who are you helping or what difference is it making? So I'm going to offer you a few minutes to think about what kind of data points might be really helpful in telling your story. Okay, thank you.
Sorry?
I didn't even buy it. It's branded. I didn't buy this for myself. I know I look like someone that went on the Stanley Cup cruise, but I probably didn't.
That's like, I'm not a follower.
No, I'm not. Up here. What kind of data points are you guys thinking of? Would anyone like to share?
Labor data.
Yeah, you're always you're the one that showed me why Maine Department of Labor is, a wonderful source of information. Wonderful tool. Does anyone have any thought? Yeah.
Well, I think the product that we're developing is focusing on two separate parts. One of them would be repairability and just reduction of e-waste. So you're thinking consumer electronics, e-waste is in that department. I'm sure there are many government organizations in EPA, well, not EPA, can't think of the acronym right now, but the government agencies that's section of that, as well as actual industry data that looks at that. And so, iFixit does a lot of these reports where they talk about how much of tech is repairable and isn't. Then the other part of it was the ergonomics of computer usage, laptop usage. And so that we looked at some health data, some of the reports of what kind of disease, not diseases, but disorders come out. So, for carpal tunnel syndrome and those sort of things, to prove the point of why our product makes sense.
Fantastic. Those are wonderful sources of data, and I'm glad that you went that step above and it wasn't just about your product, it's really about the problem that you're trying to solve. So fantastic job there. Does anyone else want to offer one, or it's supposed to get?
So we had a decent amount of like broad market data just on like trust in the internet and whether or not people trust companies nowadays, and like 60% of Americans are sick of the status quo or more. And then we did some additional research, and it looks like 95% of people want help reviewing terms of service, and then 4% might want help. So that's like, I don't know, do you guys want help with that?
Awesome. The great thing about these sources that you're discussing too is that they will kind of offer some perennial timeliness. So whenever these sources drop a new study, you can like immediately use that as the source of your pitch and say, did you see that this data came out, and we'd like to offer our perspective on it. So that's fantastic. All right, let's head over to sources. So this is a really important point in making the journalist's life easier. So if there was two pitches and they were both about a great story, but one of the stories offered, oh, and I can connect you with, this beneficiary and this supplier and this statewide expert, that is immediately the pitch that's going to get, preference for the journalist. They're working on extremely tight timeframes. They don't, if you came to them, they have beats. Of course, so like there are people that do consumer electronics and, or they might be doing maybe more political, trust in government, but they still might not know exactly who to talk to for your story. So if you can offer them on a silver platter, they will take it. So of course, it also helps connect your story with your customer base. If one of your sources is, and by source, I mean people, like not this data, I mean like someone who can talk to a reporter and say, yes, this is my expertise, or yes, this is my experience. So if your source is someone that reflects your customer base, it's almost like a great way for your customer to see themselves in your story. It demonstrates social and economic impact. And of course, it verifies relevance to the state and national context if we're able to bring in someone from the state. So I offer some examples here. I had a career coach who was supporting stay-at-home moms re-entering the paid workforce. And we contacted a data analyst from the Mom Project, which is a national organization, and they do a lot of advocacy on what it means to be a mom in the workforce. And that was a fantastic spread. This was for television. And they were able to do a virtual interview. And the reporter was really grateful that we're like, this is the person who can speak to this. We also had a previous client who could speak to their experience of what it was like re-entering the workforce after, 10 years as a stay-at-home parent. Our artisanal snack brand, we have agronomists at universities who can speak and bring their expertise, and also, so that's like upstream, but then downstream is like the farmer who can speak to, the kind of like the cultural and the values of what it means to be like using a Maine product. I had Entrepreneurship Center who wanted to talk about their great work. So somewhat similar to Dear Labs, but I don't need to do that because there's so many great people here who do that. Former clients who started their own business. In a winter recreation tech startup, we went to the executive director of Maine Outdoor Brands who could speak to the value of outdoor recreation in the wintertime for like the state as a whole. And so it really added a lot of value to like, okay, great, there's this startup with an app, but no, this is how it fits into like the larger statewide piece. So let's go to your second exercise. And I'd like you to think of someone in each of these categories of who could be a great source for you. This is someone that you would have a relationship with ultimately because they're going to really be speaking on your behalf, or not really on your behalf, but it's going to add to the story. And so if you offer to connect a journalist, you would want to be sure that you're doing that in good faith and that they're actually willing to speak. That's everything on this. Do you agree so far?
Yeah, no, 100%. Something I've seen pretty often is either they want the like ghost written story beforehand, or they don't. And then releases is a big thing too. And sometimes
We can talk about that.
But I found being persistent works too.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll follow up with pitch etiquette at the end, but you're right. At least one follow-up's good. All right, does anyone have an ideas of who could be a potential source for a story they'd like to pitch?
Yeah, I have an idea, but I also have a question.
Yes.
Which is, what is, who manufacturer does, and we could have our manufacturer, our manufacturer partner be a source, but like, what benefit would they offer? I mean, I have an actual idea, like, we have a beneficiary that would be, or like a partner that would be really great, she's.
Yes.
She runs this, program that connects people with a myriad of disabilities with assistive technology that allows them to do the things they want to do, which our desk falls under because it's really great for folks that are neurodivergent. So obviously we'd ask her, right, to participate, she'd be a great source. But I can't think of like, I mean, obviously beneficiaries, like people that buy the product would be great. But what would my people I'm employing or my supply chain have to offer that would like bolster?
Well, maybe not for that particular story,
Okay.
but do you own the manufacturer?
No.
Okay.
Yeah,
And so I'm assuming that they are pretty confidential and they wouldn't want any press to tour the facility?
oh, yeah, no,
Okay.
well, yeah, no, but that's interesting, because like. Okay, that's
Definitely something to think about.
Yeah,
Cool. But I love, that was a great beneficiary one, and it sounded like it wasn't the total, it's the end user, but it's also someone in the middle who kind of has some expertise in the health field. That sounds
yeah,
like
she
a
would be
great,
more of a partner and less of a beneficiary, because like she's basically gonna connect people who want this product with
Yeah.
the product itself, and they have this cool thing where there's like a library, you can go and like test out different adaptive technologies and, our desk being one of them. And then you can like buy it if you like it. So the people buying would be the beneficiaries, but she said, like,
that's fantastic. So if I could take that for a quick second, I'm just gonna think of TV because it's super visual. But you can imagine that the story would center first on the beneficiary and the end user who's maybe like trying out the desks or just bought the desk, and they're like, what problem are you trying to, oh, it's super hard for me to like find a desk that really, I'm sure I use a much more descriptive language, but super hard. And then we bring on this partner who says, these are the type of things that neurodivergent people really struggle with when they're looking for desks. And then it's like, oh, okay, well, someone who's solving the problem is, what's the name of your company?
Luna desk.
Luna Desk.
Mhm.
So, and then you come on and say, yeah, we either have personal experience with this problem or something. This is how we got in, and this is why our desk is so amazing. So that's like, that's kind of the arc of the story. It starts with the person, and it's probably gonna end with the person like smiling and typing away at their desk. So that's fantastic. Great
Can
job.
I just, sorry, I'm like still working through the top too. Maybe this isn't necessary, maybe it's helpful, but I was just thinking about like, Dave's Killer Bread is
Yes.
this like bread company that is by this guy who was formerly incarcerated, and he like really focused on hiring formerly incarcerated people. Would that be an example where citing people you employ
Yes.
is like part of the brand story? Because like
Fantastic.
his whole thing is like, we're a brand for formerly incarcerated people, like giving them a second life or whatever.
A plus, yes. So I don't know if you guys know that the first cohort of Diego Labs was one of the companies is the Good Crust. And they also have a pretty big social mission in who they employ and using it as like a job training program as well. So exactly, that might not always be not every story, but the good thing is that you can think about them too and say, oh, I don't even know if I have a story right now. But are you really thinking about all the potential stories you could be having? So they just wanted to open this up. Does anyone else have any questions about sources or ideas of sources?
I got a quick maybe question for you, Elaine, since it came up. Maybe share your thoughts on somebody does have a facility or a physical asset, and that can be interesting. And that those place-based economics, but there's more that kind of needs to be controlled, right? So what are kind of some of the strengths and pitfalls of letting a team of maybe media into your facility, and what does that preparation look like?
Place-based economics, that's good. I'm a Scarpin's vocabulary. Great point. We would do, the first thing I would do is have a very carefully vetted list of journalists who we have a good, strong relationship with. I can't say that I've been in a facility where that was like, I don't know, a Department of Defense. Sometimes having, but I have had instances where you map out the areas that are okay. And we might have visuals of other things that they can't see, but they might be like mock-ups or some drawn, vetted that it's okay, it's not, you're not giving away anything confidential. We might obviously be thinking about shifts and whether you want the noise of the machines to be, in the way, or if you do want to capture that noise, making sure that there's an interview room for people to actually have like, that interview with you. You don't want to be shouting over the noises of your machines. Let's see, you would have approved maybe photo points too, if you can walk through something, but not get coverage of it. Does anyone here have a facility where you make something?
We have solar projects until, like, we have thought of pouring journalists out before, we've never done
No,
it, no.
just, did you have concerns about it?
No, none, just they haven't gotten around to it, probably should.
That would be cool. And I will say, it's obviously easier for you when you're touring if you can be efficient and have, you might want to have 5 different media outlets there. But it can be really difficult to then, they all want to talk to you one-on-one. You don't want to get anyone else in the shot. And sometimes journalists are a little protective of the story, and they know that if they're getting the same story that you're telling 5 other people, that it's not really like special. That is their interest. You have your interest. They're somewhere in the middle. Maybe you bring on a couple, or you make sure that you have someone from Maine Biz who has a very specific audience, and then you might have someone, from like the Morning Sentinel, which has a different audience. That was a great, I think that would be really fun to tour.
Elaine, what's your opinion on trade publications?
I love them. I was going to talk, that's a good point to talk about too. So trade is kind of a subset of news where it's very specific to, I guess in Maine, we have Maine Biz, which is not specific to any sector of business. It's just business in Maine. But there might be, there's commercial baking, which is just for baked good manufacturers across the country. There are very specific, like airplane, air flight, hotel, hospitality, all of those different ones. It's not great if you want to get your message out to a consumer, because no one here is reading commercial baking, right? Okay, so, but it can be really helpful if we're trying to get in front of investors. If you're doing, oh goodness, I'm trying to think, what other stories? If you talk about, maybe it's always the section on the people that you're hiring, so you kind of want to get your brand known. If you're looking to hire, you want people to be like, oh yeah, I want to go to that brand, and I keep reading about them, and it's an innovative company. Trade is easier, I think. No friendlier journalists that I've talked to than are in the trades. They are very timely, and they usually take what you say. If you write it really well, they basically do it verbatim. And that's not a dig. It's great if you write it really well, but it can be a little bit friendlier to you. It's also really great if you know who their advertisers are. I've had situations where we bring up some news, like this food manufacturing client, I'm gonna keep talking about them, but they bought new equipment with this brand. And the publication really wanted to know who the equipment suppliers were because they were their advertisers. And it's kind of separation of church and state, but it's kind of not. And if they could throw a bone to their suppliers, it makes everyone happy. And media right today is really scary. Publications are shutting down left and right. People are getting laid off. AI is writing articles. People are really scared. So if there's anything you can do to make sure that that trade publication keeps its advertisers happy so it has the money to keep going, I think that's good for everybody. I would not knock the trades. Honestly, in my PR communities, everyone loves the trade so much. And it's just, you know what story you're trying to get out there. It's not someone to say like, it's not a consumer, but do you like the trades?
I did, and effective systems, we used them a lot. And ultimately, we got to a place where we were interviewed in there, so we got more of a two-way benefit. So I think it's a great way to go and find it. And there is a trade for everything.
I would love to piggyback off that. If the value in your earned media is so amplified by what you can do with it. It doesn't matter if you get like the most plum placement or a little tiny, thing in a trade. It's all about what you do with it. If you can position yourself, you always have the as seen in, you can take that quote and do a little canvassing and really promote yourself as an expert in your industry. That kind of helps build your credibility with your customers too, even if they're not reading that trade magazine. They're like, oh, you're like an innovator in your industry, so I should trust what you're saying, and that really builds. My clients obviously posted on social media, which you would be surprised how many people don't, and you should tag the publication and the writer. They'll put it in their investor decks. So many, and you can talk about it in even grant applications. It really depends on what you can do with it, or otherwise it's just gone. Or you can make it, really stand out. Does anyone have any questions about that?
Not
Or
about
not
that, but are there any lists of the journals and magazines and whatnot that do a breakdown of audience and analyze like who's reading them?
Yeah, I have some tools at the bottom,
Oh,
at the end of
okay,
the
excellent. Thank
presentation,
you.
so yes. The short answer is yes. The longer answer is if you pay, it's more convenient, and if there's any unpaid lists, you know, then it's
For what?
paying the platform that aggregates all the media outlets and gives you some information on them. We can talk about that too. Trying to give as much as I can. Okay, so timeliness. This is so incredibly important that it's like the number one thing that I always see whenever someone says like, 5 things you're doing wrong with your pitch or 7 things you should do to make your pitch land. It's all about why this matters right now. That is what the writer is pitching to their editor, or what the editor is thinking if you're pitching the editor. So back up. Typically, when you choose your journalist, which we're going to talk about in a minute, you're choosing the writer, maybe the editor, but a lot of times the writer. And the writer's going to take your pitch and say, okay, I think this, whether, should I talk to my editor about this or not? Is my editor going to pay me to write this story? And the editor is going to say to that writer, why this story? Why not the 500 others that you got in your inbox today? You have to say why this matters now. It also builds a sense of urgency if your message includes a call to action. If it's, hurry up and do solar panels on your house right now. I don't know if that is for your house, but it also says it helps you communicate to your audience, whatever you want them to do it now. And of course, it connects your story to a larger trend. Let's say you're a bridge builder. You could it's tragic. I know I'm backing up a tragedy, but the Francis Scott Key Bridge was destroyed. So and that's a really timely thing. People call it news hacking, which I don't love because it makes it seem not not valid. But it's just really important to say, okay, this story is happening right now, and this is my chance to jump at it. That's a very timely thing. Other pieces might be more long-term, like the housing shortage. That's just like a perennial issue in Maine, and everyone keeps talking about it all the time, and they'll continue to talk about it. I was on a crystal ball media panel with the Maine PR Council, and they bring in editors from all the media outlets in Maine. There's, the News Center Maine, WABI, Masthead Maine, and they talk about what trends they think they're going to be covering a lot this year. Housing was on last year. Housing is on this year. Quickly, many publications publish their editorial calendars. And this is, for every month, it could be very detailed, it could not be, but they will have an editorial calendar or their media kit, it could be either one, that says what topics they're covering when. So Down East Magazine, that the Portland issue is in June, for example. Their Homes and Garden issue was this month. Maine Biz also has an editorial calendar, and every single person should be looking at the Maine Biz editorial calendar and figuring out when they will do it by issue, but also like by topic, but also by geography. So they'll have a Lewis and Auburn issue, they'll have a Waterville issue, they'll have a clean energy issue, a banking issue. So everyone has an opportunity to hook on to that. I love Maine Biz. So with that, your next exercise, if you can, try to do it 1 per quarter, but think about 1 timely hook per quarter. It's a little hard to forecast what the news will be next quarter, but again, think about like broader trends about what's important right now. Also, it could be, I do a lot of product PR as well. So, there's the Mother's Day gift guides, there's winter holidays, there's back to school. So think about those kind of seasonal elements of the calendar as well. And also, this could be related to when you yourself will have, will you be launching a new product in October? So that that's something maybe you want to connect it, then. So I invite you guys to talk about it.
That's hard.
It is. What's your business?
We're B2B seaweed materials company.
Oh, cool. I'm actually working with a seaweed, not B2B, but a company that uses kelp in Maine too.
Which one?
It's called cold current kelp.
Oh, yeah.
So You think, well, what about harvest time?
We're purchasing, so we're not,
I know, but could you do it from your suppliers?
well, we're not, we haven't gotten an investment yet, so we
Okay.
haven't started yet, so
Okay.
it's hard to like, I'm trying to do it all
Okay.
hypothetically in my mind.
Okay,
Like, forget it. We've had media coverage, based on our future product. But it wasn't the result of a pitch,
mm-hmm,
yeah,
mm-hmm.
it was sort of on the basis of what our products could do, will be able to do for other companies.
Well, could you do something around Earth Month?
Why?
Why?
Yeah,
To get coverage? I'm assuming, are you using seaweed as a alternative to plastic?
that's part of the plan, yeah.
That sounds like a great environmental story. Is
Yeah, definitely.
there anything else? That's part of it. Is there something else that is part of it that we should be thinking about? Not to put you on the spot, but I just wanted to offer, you seemed a little like, we ended it on a question, maybe?
I'm just drawing a blank on it.
Yours replaces PFAS, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a PFAS crisis, right,
That is huge.
in Maine farmland, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And now that
And waterways.
they just came out with, they're allowing farmers to apply for the funding, so that's farmers, but you can still, it's still in the news, right? It's still PFAS is in the news, and you say, I have something kind of different, like it's related to
Well,
PFAS,
that's
but
what we
it's
got the coverage for
Perfect.
before, yeah.
different. Okay,
And it's actually not the farmers, but it's the products that are made with PFAS are
Right.
now in Maine. Maine is a leader in being in questioning what's in every product that they're selling now. So what we're doing is making coatings.
Yeah.
That replace the coatings on paper like this. Yeah.
so I understand that it's not like May is not PFAS month, but that does seem like, it did seem like maybe that's something you would align your own company news for, or if you think you'll have them, but I agree with PFAS is like a perennial issue. So I think it would be, and it sounds like you've already had success with that. I would, April is Earth Month, might be a little short notice, but I think that could be,
Yeah,
it's,
yeah.
people are trying to look for it. I know that it's not like, you're like, okay, are we making up days? Like, I'm not asking you to pitch like National Cheese and Crackers Day. I promise there are those days and some places do. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying you should take advantage of what people are talking about. And if April really is, that's when I feel like that's credible enough that that's when other organizations are also doing things and they're like, they're releasing this in honor of Earth Month. And we've gotten like, back when Earth Month was just starting, I got news for like vegan products. Like, I know it seems a little silly with how we've grown, but it allows you to cut through the noise a little bit and get your story heard.
We, one time had the opportunity to be on a best of 2022, best of whatever, for in our category, which is standing desk, what they use this for. We're not just standing, but that's what they have. And, I was curious about that because that was actually in Q1, which surprised me because I thought that might have been more, it was like late Q1, maybe in like April. So, what's the timing for those kinds of, that kind of content, that's like best of this year, best of this, whatever?
Very related to that media itself. And they will all do their own awards. I guess it would be typically October to March is when I see those a lot, because some people will say, oh, it could be anything released in 23, and therefore we're doing the award sometime in 24. Or, it might be like a July to July month. It's very specific on who.
It was consumers for consumers, so I think it was geared toward, like, in the beginning of this year, here's what you should be buying this year.
Mhm.
But, yeah, I don't know, maybe they're publishing now a year.
Super interesting on that. So with the product PR too, what, if I can be a little tailored, I don't know if anyone else has like an actual product, but, where gift guides and, okay, going back to sorry, I don't want to get too in the weeds, but I'm going to. So commerce, e-commerce is like the biggest revenue generator for media, and we want them to stay in business. So a lot of the ways they generate money is when they give you, these are the things you should buy, and here's a link. And we may get a small commission. It's not really that small. It's like they 10 to 20%, or if it's Amazon, they get 1% of your cart. So it could be the product that you buy and something else. So it can generate a lot of money for them. Publications have more commerce writers than they do any other kind of writer. This isn't really true for the locals, but I'm talking about like product PR. So they used to make a lot of money on gift guides because that's what everyone would buy. But now they want to kind of extend that and make it evergreen. So you could pitch them a standing desk in May, and they could use it in an article in July, and they could use it in an article in September and December. If it's making money for them, it will it'll find its way back. So does anyone else have a product?
There's a comment in the chat from Rob, who's the founder of Snow Yak. What would you recommend for a highly seasonal product such as Snow Yak? Should they double down in the fall of winter? It's a sit scheme.
Yes. Yes, but that doesn't mean you can't plan. It just means that we're going to talk about visuals in a second, but it would probably be a little incongruous to be talking, unless there might be a story in buying a new facility or something that they're doing operationally. But probably does make most sense for someone like Rob.
I'm just wondering, so you're talking about Maine publications mostly. Do you think it's important to focus first on the local rather than on the national?
If you've never gotten press before, best to start with the base. Because other publications are going to want to see that someone else has covered you. So being able to say yes, and it proves to them that you can interview well. So you can show them a clip, you can show them a podcast episode, you can show them, or not show them, but have on your website. Yes, I've tried it. Sometimes clients want to go straight for the jugular. It doesn't really work. Look, Maine, I know, is small, and it is even hard to say, like, we can't get in the Boston Globe, like someone who's in Boston can get in the Boston Globe. To them, it's like the local, but to us, it's like, wow, okay, like I'm in the Boston Globe. It's just one more step to the New York Times. But do not discount the value of being in a local that you can, again, it's all about what you do with it. If it puts you in a good light, I don't think it really matters that that Maine Biz wrote you up and it wasn't like Fortune 500. You're not going to be able to get in those publications either until you're making you got a $30 million investment. You can be in there, but.
And what does being associated with Maine, in your opinion, mean?
Well, for seaweed, are you sourcing from?
Internationally.
Okay.
Including Maine. But I'm not. Yeah.
For Maine, it means everything, but outside of Maine, I still think that there are, I would say especially our aquaculture does carry weight, to say that you're from Maine. Sorry, yes?
I work with a lot of marine and aquaculture related people across the country, and they consistently identify Maine as the leader in the industry and the place to look for innovation and new business models.
Huzzah. I agree. Plus, I believe that we are the largest source of cultivated seaweed in the US. So
for the moment, Alaska is quick on our heels.
So it could be number 2, but it would still be very important, right? Okay, let's talk about visuals, unless anyone had any other questions about this. No? Okay. Let's talk. Sorry, did you have a question? Yeah.
I had tax day written down. Every solar company sponsors Earth Day.
Yeah.
We will too. We could set something up just listening to you, but we're getting calls right now because they're, you own a solar system, you get investment tax credit when you get it. So we're getting more calls right now. It's tax time. People are figuring out what they know.
Wow. Okay.
And that's way more important than.
Yeah. If it's driving,
Hey, driving business.
I would say, you know, to me, I feel like it's tax, I don't even think, I mean, personally, I don't wait till April 15 to do my taxes. They're all done. So,
Good for you.
yeah.
Probably extensions.
I have a less complicated business model than I think you do. So I would say, I would take advantage. It doesn't have to be April 15. But that's really, yeah, or yeah, you could talk about and think about too, the fact that the day you pitch, it's not gonna, if they say yes, it's not gonna come out the next day. Factor in, especially for something like a magazine, that's 3 months lead time. But even if you're just doing a quick pitch to the Morning Sentinel, factor in a couple, a week or so. So, it's relevant. People are thinking about taxes, even if it's not tax day. So fantastic. Okay, let's talk about visuals. Super important, especially for tech people, because so when you pitch, you could either have a Google Drive of photos and or videography that you can share. Some people would want to take that. Some people just want to see it so they can kind of understand what they might capture. They're like, okay, we want to take our own photos, but like, I want to know that there's something to capture. Or if it's television, they need so much footage for B-roll, like while people are talking, because you never just watch the person talk for 2 minutes. It's like all the footage. So really important for you to have those assets to, again, make the journalist's life a lot easier. So when you think about visuals, you want to think about action. Really hard, but it can't just be people staring at a computer. Like I know for so many tech companies, it's like, well, all of our work gets done on a computer. That's where all the action's happening. But you might think about what other aspects of your business are where people are together or they're doing something cool. Sometimes, bricks is great because it can show that there's a lot of people here sometimes, even if they're not all related to your business, but it has a feeling of vitality and there's the visual interest and it's not just one person staring at their screen. Again, what can you capture in B-roll footage? Sometimes you might be able to do a screen capture of like, if you do have a real tech product, you might be able to, kind of go through the screens or the images on your product and kind of use that as B-roll so people can get a feel of what it is like to use your product. Think about the setting. Again, if maybe people work from home, you might want to think about, making sure that that your media appointment happens here or in another co-working space, or maybe you're going to your supplier, some of the partners that we discussed already. Take advantage of the opportunity, the fact that you're going to be on camera, and think about like perennial, beautiful branded garments. So, and it's right here, so it will be within the shot. You should definitely wear that when you're, sorry that I don't have my camera. Think about other branded elements, either what you're wearing or in the background. If you have like a cool wall with like your logo splashed on it, like, and that's where you want to take. Absolutely, you should do that. Take advantage of it. But also think about something that's kind of branded but visually quiet is what I'll say. You don't want something totally crazy that people are focused on what's happening behind you and not on what you're saying. And also think about if there's someone else who can be interviewed. Always, if you don't personally feel very comfortable, think about who might be able to be a great representative. Play around who can talk about who can say the talking points in a really relaxed manner. So not final exercise. We're on number 4. We think about, it could be photo, it could be video. Love to think about what kind of visuals. You don't have to fill out everything, but maybe you can think of an awesome setting. Can you go to the ocean, just be on a boat? Or go into a warehouse, a drying area with your kelp. Where can you be? You must have had to get creative, huh, with some visuals.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Emily's pretty creative too. Emily's pretty creative. Our gas seat video, I think. She was the creative director behind our. She was a visionary behind it.
We actually shot this place when we just did a video that we haven't released yet. We did the award ceremony. That one maybe got 2 minutes. Business video, so it's 1 minute. So Chris Don's talking, inspiring the area, and we came here. And when you've got 2 or 3 people sitting at this table, bouncing ideas off each other, the computers are in front of them, they're obviously working, and then you've got the exposed brick walls, and then they go in with an angle of the, well, actually, they did it, there are these poster things. And it's kind of the coolest part of the video, because you've got this old building that's being repurposed, and you see the big windows, the brick walls, people working, yucking it up while they're working, and it, to your point, made it so much better than so much. Yeah, like, who cares? I mean,
Well, thank you for that example. Yes, it can be really difficult to figure out how you want to portray something. But I agree, use this space, it's beautiful. And you can, you know, who knows that the people behind you aren't actually working at your company? Like, just like doubled your workforce. Fantastic.
To Kim's point, maybe for anybody that, in the cohort that's, having an interview and needs a physical space, just let us know. We'll help you coordinate that. We'll reserve.
Stand in.
Well, yeah, we will not only reserve a room for you, but truly and it wouldn't be the first time, put out like a little call, make sure people are working on site in great conditions. So, I think there's a practical point here too on how you communicate and storytell in the appropriate setting that represents your business, which should be one of kind of positivity and momentum. So, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, fantastic resource. Does anyone have any other thoughts of what might be able to tell your story in a visual manner?
I have an anti-example.
Great, love those.
So I've been not totally consensually featured on the cover of a bunch of things covered in mud and work gear on boats, harvesting stuff from the ocean. And then those images were not used by our company, they were used by nonprofits that don't do any of the work, but that benefit a lot from media about the work we were doing, very labor intensive, backbreaking. That really soured my relationship with those nonprofits. Because I didn't get anything out of it. The businesses didn't really get anything out of it. We weren't credited. You couldn't see the name of the boat. You couldn't see anything. It was like, as far as anybody knew, that was something that organization was doing. And that, I'll never work with them again. Ever.
Thank you for sharing. That's definitely a good risk to think about. And I do think, once you're on the boat with someone, or, the media has agreed to the story, I think it's totally fair. And I think they would want to, I would like to believe in, in the credibility of the journalist, that they would say like, oh, we're really proud of this boat, and make sure that you get the, this is ours, and this is how we know it's ours. And, let's make sure we get that. So you were non-consensually, so you didn't know that people would be taking photos, or you knew that they were taking photos and you just
It was
weren't?
never clear like how it was gonna be used for. It was like, okay, here, everybody, like, you're gonna be out there, there's a chase boat's gonna come out, there's gonna be a film crew, they're gonna take pictures with you.
Oh.
Okay, cool, sounds great. Like, I assumed it would be used to like talk about what we were doing, not talk about what somebody else was doing that was unrelated to what we were doing. And that was, I'm not something that police probably, I don't know, what is police for.
Thank you for that.
So, I don't know, if you're gonna take pictures of these people, make sure they know
Yeah, that would
why
be great.
and where it's going, and if it's gonna be splashed across, like, a research or trade, something.
Is it legal to be able to just take pictures of whatever you want with people in them? Is there legality involved?
Pictures that you're taking, or that the
Someone else taking
journalists?
pictures, like this gentleman, somebody was taking pictures and he's in it and being used for somebody else's purposes.
I mean, I could take a picture of you and upload it to social media, and it's not that it would be illegal, but you wouldn't like me. And that doesn't serve my purpose. I think, I think they weren't very clear with him that they were using like, that this was professional photos and they didn't get it. I would always ask if people want to be in the photo, and you can see when journalists like pan, like if they're panning a crowd, it's not like they went and got a media release from every single person that was in that crowd. We would do it if you're in the classroom, if anyone, they do have experience going into schools, if anyone wants to talk about that, but no, okay. So those have special protection. But if we're just walking down the street and there's a camera crew across the street and they're panning in front of the building, I'm going to be on camera.
I feel the same way about social media.
Yeah.
Like people tag me and stuff so they can sell more wreaths or do a GoFundMe and I'm like, who are you? And I don't even know this person and I get that all the time and I'm like, trying to get rid of it. I think it's rude.
I agree. I think it's incredibly rude. Thank you for those questions. And I would just do best practice. Make sure that, it sounds like when you're here in Bricks, everyone kind of knows and you just be friendly, like, hey, I'm going to be interviewed. They're going to take a camera crew. If you don't want to be on camera, take a coffee break. All right. Now let's talk about journalists. Okay. Obviously, a really important part of a pitch is sending it to the person who's going to care about it. So you want to pick which type of media, news, lifestyle, trade, and which format will be best for your story. Is it really something that should be photographed and maybe you really don't want to speak like live interview on camera? So maybe you're more comfortable being in print at first. Or do you love that there's going to be like a ton of action and maybe it's not really best captured on photo, so maybe video is going to be better. And then you wanted to, journalists call it their beat. Maybe like Tux Turkle at the Portland Press Herald does clean energy. So he's the person that Perennial is talking to, but my food client wouldn't be talking to Tux Turkle. So you obviously I know it seems so obvious, but there's a lot of bad PR that happens and they get these lists of journalists, to your point, and they just spam them all and then we all get bad names. So let's pick your beat carefully. It's really important to build a relationship with journalists, but I'll preface this by saying that obviously it's hard if you don't have a relationship with a journalist. It's like you can't just immediately on your first email build that relationship. It's going to take time. And the best way you can do it is just by following, being a conscientious person and saying, not spamming their inbox, but saying like, I have a story that I think would be really interesting to you. Here are all the, here's the data, here are the people I think you could talk to, here's why I think it would be interesting to you. And then, let it be, wait a week, follow up, and then let it go. And hopefully they respond. And then you're just talking, and we all call it building a relationship, but it's really just being like a good person and conversing in that way. And then you'll be able to bounce stories off each other. Like at this point, I have a really great relationship with Renee Cords at Maine Biz. But when I first started sending her press releases, I didn't. It's been a long time. So let's talk about how you can find journalists, because that's obviously a really important part. So if you have someone on staff, if you have Tux Turkle at the Portland Press Herald, he is paid by the Portland Press Herald. He's not freelance. So he's going to have an @pressherald.com email address. So you go to the Portland Press Herald, you go to their masthead, if it's the television channel, they call it their newsroom, and you go to their bios and they talk about what, they give you a little bit of information. They're kind of trying to say here's what I'm interested in. If you have a story like this, please tell it to me. And they have their email address. So that's super easy. That's a wonderful way to do it. If they are freelance, it's harder. Sometimes if you read the Boston Globe and it's a freelance, they call them a contributor. And if you go way down at the bottom, they'll say this article was written by contributor Elaine Theriault-Currier. She can be reached at this. So that's really helpful. Then, okay, so maybe they don't have it online. You would check their X profile. And honestly, the more people are leaving X, LinkedIn is becoming a really big place for where journalists are talking about their stories and they're putting out requests, pitch requests or source requests. So it's really valuable to find some journalists that you really like or that are writing in your beat and follow them. You could, if you like X, you can be there too, but LinkedIn is honestly, really come up in the last couple of years. So that's, should say my bigger tip is find the journalists who are writing about the types of stories that you want to tell and read their stuff and understand their style, understand what they like to talk about. And then you can say, like, the way I open every pitch is, hey, Garvin, I really enjoyed your article on place-based economics last week. And I thought you'd be really interested in the story of revitalization of Waterville. And that's a way for me to show that I know what Garvin writes about, and I know that this story is going to be interesting to him. It's just a sentence. It's just a way to open it nicely. So read a couple of their articles, make sure you know that they really want to talk about what you're going to talk about. Quoted is a great platform. It's like freemium, so you could do free and paid. And that's awesome if you want to be like a source expert. This is really good if you're, let's say, like a dermatologist who offers a service and you have this, like, you know, your doctorate, and everyone's asking, okay, what about this skin condition? And why might you want a mineral-based sunscreen instead of the other kind of based sunscreen? So it's not great for my clients that have a product, but I am seeing more product requests come there because you might be familiar with HARO, Health a Reporter Out, HARO. That used to be the platform. Cision bought it and it's become Connectively. And I've noticed that the quality of requests that come through it has just tanked, but Quoted is really good. So everyone should it links right to your LinkedIn profile. So everyone should go on Quoted, do a free profile. You can, put in the tags of the things that are related to, like clean energy, could be, marine economy, seaweed, you can put like 50 tags, and then you'll get email alerts of all the journalists who are looking for source requests, and you can pitch them 2 times a month for free. So you have to go into the platform and pitch. They don't tell you what their email address is because they want you to go through and pay. But that's a fantastic source. Definitely somewhere I would start. The paid end is really, if you've heard of Muck Rack, you might be searching for a journalist and be like, freelancer, like Elaine Theriault-Currier, freelance writer, email. And Muck Rack will come up because I have a profile on Muck Rack and it tells you, where I've written, it tells you, different things about me, but it hides my email address until you pay. Candidly, I pay $5,000 a year for Muck Rack. So it's something that I have as a professional expense, but I don't expect anyone here, unless you are so all in on PR. I don't expect this to be your first or second or fifth stop. But I just wanted to tell you what Muck Rack is, because if you were looking for an email, you can, if you paid, you could find it. But sometimes they pull from the Twitter bio, and some people have their email in their Twitter bio. So you could always just check Muck Rack and make sure, that they don't have it public. Sometimes their Instagram account also has their email public as well. Does anyone have any questions? Yes.
I've always kind of felt about this risk that if I get to a journalist, I know you said, let's do your homework correctly, understand the context. But here I am taking all this information in a platter and giving it to the journalist. What is the guarantee that it wouldn't get twisted or spin in an adverse format that I'm not looking for? So my fear is, should I give it, or should I just stay below the radar screen this way nobody finds that? So it's not
It's a good point. It's a good point. I definitely don't pitch investigative journalists or that say investigative in their title, or Spotlight Team, Boston Globe. I'm not going. They're looking for a problem. They're not, and that's fine. They do great work, but we don't want an investigation. We just want to tell a nice story. It's a little hard for me to answer this, but I understand. And there really is no guarantee that the writer couldn't just take what you said and then not include you in the story, right? There's no guarantee.
And maybe the other dimension is that if I had a product or a service which is very tangible, very straightforward, black and white, I wouldn't fear that much. But if I'm in a profession like consulting, with integrity, my acumen, all of that matters. I will be much more sensitive to as to what I'm putting out there. And that's exactly the question I am interested in. So I'm careful as to what I prepare. And in my prior life, I've actually talked to some of the not here, but in Ohio, they talk to the reporters. But obviously, when you talk to the reporters and you've given them the thing, there is 1 or 2 chances out of 10 that they will take it and put it in the wrong context. I've been hurt by it. So from actual experience, how do I prevent that? Or maybe there's a lucky roulette out there.
Yeah, I've only had to issue a correction a couple times. When you say the information, are you commenting on like a national trend or what kind of information?
Say, Enron happened, right?
Yeah.
And it's a major event, right? And you're kind of the consulting or the accounting guy coming out there and trying to comment on it.
Mm-hmm.
But what you say gets spun against you, the person. And that's the part. And so again, you want, if you're black and white on a product, that's okay. Where there's a gray element, which is kind of catchy, and catchy is why you want to go there, but then the catchy could bite you back. And that's really the part. How do you, and the only other answer I have for myself is you build a long-term relationship where you'll be assured, but that takes time.
Yes, that is the long answer. You're right. I'm building those relationships. Something I guess then you might not be interested. There's definitely a standard way of doing this, but if you have this like really, really robust expertise, honestly, there's nothing wrong with saying, can we have like a quick background call, or can we, when we email, and then it's okay to be on the phone, it's not our first go-to anymore, but it's okay to say, I have some thoughts on this. The stereotype of PR is to say like, oh my gosh, they kept telling me everything was off the record or on background. And that's, you want to be careful of how many times you say this is off the record. Typically I would steer clear of commenting on things that are, really charged, like Enron was, very negative, very, very charged. It might be easier to flip something on you if you're going at it in that way. So maybe I would test a few that are a little more neutral or positive. I suppose I would do that. I always try to check the tenor of the journalist and like, okay, it seems like I know there are some, and you can tell in their email interaction, honestly. There's some that even started in the Waterville, like the Morning Sentinel, and then they went to the Press Herald, and then they went to the Maine Monitor, and you can track their career. So I know that that's where they were going, but their stories were always trying to like find the problem and and it's a little negative and like you're trying to go under. They almost were like very skeptical, and that maybe something's a smoke screen, and I don't really believe what you're telling me because I think you might have some bias. So when you maybe reading, and I don't want to tell you something that you didn't already know, it sounds like to do your homework, but that's the first giveaway I get when I'm like, okay, this person is not really about doing a positive, a story that I think they might be going at it in a different angle. But I'm sorry that was, there's not as much as we can try to create the conditions, it is earned media. So there's nothing we can say like, I didn't really mean it that way. And the story's already been written. Anyone else have any questions before we go on, or we can ask them now? I think it would be great if everyone looked up at least one journalist. And I can already tell you what Tuck Circle's email address is, but I think everyone should take this time to at least identify one. If you can't find their email address, that's fine. But start with Maine. Nice job. That's a hard question.
No, my favorite was when we worked in Maine, there's sign, congratulations.
I'm just taking notes. We do press releases too. Well, we'll do them when we.
That wasn't it.
When we turn to some, for instance, so that do it for act.
Yeah.
Just general
Is it actually?
knowledge that we exist. This could be someday, investment someday down the road.
So do you have journalists?
We have PR kind of. We have
Sorry,
formed this-
who you think would be,
We'll
what
also
kind of
do-
stories were you hoping to, what
Press
stories?
release.
Sorry? I don't know.
Investors.
Oh, okay.
So this
I
company.
didn't want you to feel left out. I felt like I was speaking and then you're right there, so I don't want you to feel left out here. Okay, I hope that
You
it's
know,
thought.
brand capital. So
All right, before I lose everyone, because I think everyone's talking and I might lose you.
Eyes on the prize.
Eyes on my email. I'm giving you an email.
a connection.
Please feel free to reach out. I would love to hear your thoughts on the stories that you guys want to tell. And I would love to be as helpful as I can. I know I go to these presentations all the time and it always bugs me when I get really surface level stuff that I can't apply to my business. And I really want to make sure that you guys get at least something that you can apply, that you felt that you walked away with something. So if you felt like you did and you want to talk more, you felt like you didn't and you want to get that value, please tell me. This is my info. I have business cards and I have a nifty like QR business card if you're not into paper. But I wish you the best. I think everyone here, even if I didn't get to hear everyone's story, everyone here has a story to tell. There's definitely a place to tell it in Maine and abroad, but you're gonna get a lot of value out of Maine. I can't say enough about, I should have even mentioned why I care about earned media. Is I started working at the Growth Council and one of my responsibilities, we had to write a press release and I loved it and did more and more. And I realized soon people were talking like, oh yeah, Waterville's got a lot going on. Or like, oh yeah, I saw that thing happen in Waterville. And you could just like feel the momentum and you finally could feel the stories that were happening and they were getting their dues. And I just realized how powerful earned media is, not only for businesses, but for regions as a whole. And I believe that it has the value for you too. So. Thank you so much, everybody.
Elaine, where are you based?
My home. Windsor. I live in Windsor. I'm from Winthrop, worked in Waterville. I live in Windsor. I am a Maine gal. And so I think I know the Maine media really well too. And I can talk about other things, but I can talk about grant, but yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. To close out, thank you to everyone for joining us this evening. This conversation has been recorded and will be available for later viewing on our YouTube channel. Just like to give another shout out to our sponsors, the Harold Alphon Institute for Business Innovation at Thomas College, Valley Beverage, and Bricks Co-working and Innovation Space.